all over the world, in fact, we're restaurants from musty garages and remote cornfields. It's as if we had taken a piece of our past and brought it to life. It's not just car collectors who are scouring the countryside. Even the world's oldest manufacturer is bringing its most successful race car out of the shadows of the company museum. From grassroots to corporate offices, we're admitting to ourselves there is something missing from our lives. For this day, Daimler-Benz has gone back 23 years into its family album to give us a view of ourselves as we used to be, to bring back one of the world's great racing cars. From Stuttgart, West Germany, this extraordinary race car that has hardly seen the sun for over 2 decades rolls on a trailer behind a sedan. This is not just any car traveling across the picture-perfect German countryside to just anywhere. It is headed for the cargo bay of a 747 on its way to California for a kind of reunion. $6,000 miles, 2 decades, and a culture away. At the world-famous Laguna Seca racetrack in Monterey, California, they are waiting. Much as crowds waited in 1955 along the shoulders of the Apennine Mountains for a glimpse of the SLR in one of its few races, the 1,000-mile loop of Italy and the Mille Miglia. By jet from Europe and down the coast highway come the cars of our past. Along the great freeways through the Tehachapis, aboard ship from the Far East. They are here just for this day, to reenact the moments of their greatness in the annual Monterey Historic car races. The dream of a businessman turned race organizer, Stephen Earle.
What is this phenomenon? It must really be the American love of the automobile that brings these people here. I can't believe what we're seeing. We have 10, 15,000 people out here pretending it's something from their past. I believe that it's really our upbringing surrounding the automobile. Our early days, our life is so tied to the automobile, and it's used for our pleasure that we've come back here and perhaps a nostalgic sense trying to relive days that have gone on by. The nice part is that these are real cars, and they are the actual cars that competed at the time, and they are seeing the past. This is not a replica. This is a real event, a restaging of a real event.
The memories are sharp, the image is vivid, of a 220-mile-an-hour McLaren driven by Denny Hulme, a blue Ferrari coupe with Mark Donohue, a World Championship Ford with Bruce McLaren, a fragile Lotus raced here by Dan Gurney, GT 350 Mustangs of Jerry Titus, a Cooper Buick with Indy racer Roger Ward, Paul O'Shea's Mercedes, Bob Bondurant's Corvette, and the Porsches of Ken Miles. But there is no memory stronger, no image more immediate than that of Sterling Moss and Juan Manuel Fangio, 2 of the most brilliant drivers in history in the 300 SLR. Dressed as it drove across the finish line in Brescia, Italy, the SLR has come to this racetrack in California to be driven by America's first world champion, Phil Hill.
Oh, it was terrific. Immediately I recalled the first time that I ever seen them at Le Mans in 1955. And I had walked up and examined the cars closely, watched Fangio and the other drivers, and secretly envied them, even though I was driving a Ferrari. It has a surprising amount of power. I have a very difficult time remembering that it's only a 3-liter machine, and also a 3-liter machine of 20 years ago. It's extraordinary.
early morning fog, so typical of Northern California, blankets one of the loveliest sights on Earth, the Monterey coastline. Here, a 15-minute drive by Duesenberg from the Laguna Seca racetrack, framed by the rocks and the sea, is the 18th green at Pebble Beach. In past years, this pampered grass was walked on by Ben Hogan, Sam Snead, and Bing Crosby. But this morning, the collectors, the keepers of history are here. With the Pacific as their backdrop and to the total unconcern of the sea otters, they bring Rolls-Royce, Mercedes, Isotta, Hispano-Suiza, Delage, MG, and dozens of other makes. Perhaps $30 million worth of rolling stock to display on the lawn on the edge of the Del Monte Forest. In this aristocracy of car owners, Briggs Cunningham is clearly royalty. Successful America's Cup yachtsman, automobile racer, constructor of racing and grand touring cars bearing his name, proprietor of a tiny jewel of an auto museum, Cunningham understands the hopes and dreams of car collectors.
I think it's an American dream that everybody loves cars, and I think everybody's anxious to see cars, and it's part of their heritage that they've been brought up to love cars. And the transportation in this country, it's a big country, and they've moved around with cars. And now they can see the cars as they were in the old days that maybe their fathers or grandfathers had. And I just think it's an irresistible force that draws them to these things.
This morning, with the fog lifted from this carefully tended surface, the public image of the old car fanatic comes to life. This is a festival of hood ornaments and jeweler's rouge, of horns and grills and exhaust trumpets and superchargers, complete with feather dusters and chamois, cameras and dust cloths. At the lodge, this is a tradition that began almost 3 decades ago and was nursed through a delicate childhood by elegant Lucius Beebe, an old-fashioned newspaper columnist who helped set tastes in America for half a century. More than anyone, Beebe established this as one of the country's most prestigious concours d'elegance. So it is not enough at Pebble Beach to drive up in just another Rolls-Royce. To make the winner's stand, you must have a perfect Mercedes-Benz 540K Zindelfingen coupe, or a 1930 Duesenberg J Murphy boat-tailed speedster, or a simple 1934 Packard, or another anything you've paid maybe $200,000 to buy, perhaps another $80,000 to restore. Some of the cars, particularly the very old ones, are literally priceless. Again, Briggs Cunningham, so understanding of automotive history, speaks for the group.
The cars that we see are going to be so totally different. But you don't have the special bodies, you won't have the polished brass. It's a whole era that's gone. It's just like the gay 90s.
A concours is a set piece, a marked and pallid contrast to the seething, energetic carnival atmosphere at the racetrack. But the gay 90s are relived here too. There is time between events for a gathering of street automobiles and to have a once-in-a-lifetime chance to see cars like number 41, a priceless 1914 Mercedes Grand Prix car. The point is to have fun. Not every active enthusiast is a racing driver. Most are delighted to join in a drive in front of thousands of appreciative fans. Where else would you see an 1898 Benz Velo chugging along?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
The pits and paddock are open to anyone with the price of admission, so race fans walk around freely.
This, the 5th event, the diversity of entries has surpassed...
Or just gawk in amazement at the diversity of sights. They shoot photos of the automobiles and each other, stare at cars, work the racing pits, serve as gophers to the drivers.
That is why we do these
They,
things.
too, contribute to the spectacle.
Yours and ours. As a basic hardcore enthusiast, I'm sure you understand. This has been a joint effort, and we thank you for participating with us.
The very young see legendary names for the first time. The middle-aged revisit the automotive friends of their youth. Here are just plain people, ordinary folk, realizing their dreams and enjoying their history.
Last year I was pitted next to Phil Hill, and Briggs Cunningham was racing with us, and this is an opportunity that people who are novices can't get today.
What I like about it is that the people who are running these cars, the people who are interested in the cars as entities, they're not interested in going out and winning money or winning prizes. All the people who do this love the cars.
To me, the importance is the fact that these cars are kept as nearly as original as possible within reasonable limits, and that they're used.
The car's coming up now, looking to the starter, waiting for the green flag.
At Laguna Seca, the cars are being used as many once were on a racetrack. Today, a 1914 Ford Model T Speedster will race against a French Grand Prix car. The last of the great McLaren sports cars will race here, and so will a Curtis, and a brace of Bugattis in 1 of 10 races. Some spectators, even some drivers, will leave the track having relived an endeared moment. Most will depart exhilarated by the sight of Porsches, AC Bristols, Morgans, Jaguars, and Austin Healey's, the familiar cars of the backroads 50s and 60s, having run once again. Whichever, almost all here share memories. Some of us remember Peter Revson in his beginning years in a Morgan, dueling Bob Holbert's Porsche Speedster. Revson is dead now and Holbert retired, but the cars and the duels continue. This day, those Morgan Porsche battles are fought again, but among drivers of a newer generation, men and women who remember. Today, they are here to relive their dreams. Whatever we owned, whatever we dreamed of owning, these are the cars we drove to see, some of us 500 miles.
Tire scrubbing in the front row. You've got that Ferrari 512M driven by Steve Griswold alongside the Porsche driven by Peter Smith. They're over into turn 1 now, and
Mark Donohue's blue number 6 Ferrari coupe.
Back with the red new in that McLaren M20 was right on.
Or Denny Holmes' orange and black number 5 McLarens he took year after year to the Canadian American Road Racing Championships.
Leader in the McLaren. Incidentally, both those cars have the same numbers that they had when they were driven.
Or Mario Andretti and a sister to the number 1 red Ford.
That Ferrari 512M, it was number 6. It is still Loop in the lead as they come off the hill. Gets a little wide coming out of
Today, a
turn 7.
Western rancher in Holmes' old McLaren, and a man who restores cars for a living, driving the old Donohue Ferrari, are in full cry with these mechanical giants.
He outbreaks it. He goes in the corner really deep. Goes on the inside. I think the car's actually touched. His Loop had to go wide. There was no place else to go. And Griswold has taken the lead in that Ferrari, and he accelerates away.
The rancher, who has come back to Laguna Seca after a long absence, will go on to win today. But both have done it. They have brought these cars back to life.
Just enormous for one of these events today. This is the 5th.
Because racing was and is a kind of picnic with entertainment. Waiting in Monterey became itself part of the event. Even former national champion Paul O'Shea focused on time.
This is such nostalgia to be here. This car I'm sitting on right now, for instance, is the 18th 300 SL to ever be built. And it was built in 1954. And to think that 24 years later, I'm out here running this car, whistling around this racetrack, is just fantastic. I think it's the greatest thing that's ever happened.
History repeats itself once again as we have another classic battle between them.
Of all the track battles, one most race watchers remember was the classic confrontation between sophisticated old world and brash new. The 300 SL, low sloping hood, canted fuel-injected engine, gull-wing doors, met the Detroit newcomer from Chevrolet. It was finesse against pure power, and it was a battle that was never truly resolved.
You can see the brake lights come on as the cars start down the hill, and now Moore tries to get inside of O'Shea between turns 7 and 8, unable to do so, looking for a place to pass. It looks as if...
On pure horsepower tracks like Laguna Seca, Corvettes had an advantage to the surprise of dyed-in-the-wool imported car fans. They stopped laughing at the funny plastic car from the Midwest when Corvettes began to win. The car was Chevy's pride when it was introduced in 1953. 25 years later and 3 times the price, it still is.
And now 3 MGs, very evenly matched, having a tremendous battle.
And of course, there were the MGs.
Back and forth all the way around
They were
the track.
so slow, they broke our hearts.
Roger Downer in that coupe.
Then as now, Americans just wouldn't let cars alone. Not even the absolute purebreds. John Cooper built a little car that was just fine at home in England. But when it got to the U.S. and had to compete against Porsches, an inventive Northwesterner put a Porsche engine in it, named it a Pooper, and sometimes even managed to stay ahead of his rivals from Germany. Mostly, though, he would simply watch the real Porsches drive away from him. We raced our expensive road cars, too. And this day in Monterey, a newer generation brought forth all the excitement of earlier years in a Ferrari battle that had the crowd cheering. There was even a brief glimpse of that English hot rod, the Allard. And of course, the cars designed and built by America's premier racer promoter, Carroll Shelby. The huge and intimidating Cobras and their smaller but equally fierce brothers, the GT350 Mustangs, thundered around Laguna Seca. Young and old, there is a special love among collectors for the cars our grandfathers and even our great-grandfathers used to watch. There is a special sense of fulfillment only men who race them can understand.
The early 1900s on up to 1947.
Here were Mercedes-Benz SSK, Bugatti, Talbot, Fraser-Nash, most of them literally irreplaceable.
Museum pieces out on a racetrack. Kind of hard to believe, but some of these cars did come from museums just to compete here at this event.
The smaller of the white cars, number 90, is a Mercedes that ran in the Sicilian Targa Florio of 1922. Next to it is the thundering 1927 SSK, the car of cars.
The conservative estimate of the cars in this particular group on the track now, maybe $10 million. But how do you replace a car like this if something should happen to it where you would wreck the automobile? You are watching history in motion as these cars come down off the hill, and soon they'll be looking for the starter's green flag, and out it comes.
To take a Type 37A Bugatti, the pride of French racing in the 1920s, out and around a front row this way may seem foolhardy. But to its driver and to the people watching, it was the sight and the feel of 50-year-old muscles flexing. They were building light, fast cars in England, too. And the legendary ability of the Fraser-Nash was as evident at Monterey as it had ever been in the 1930s at Brooklands.
That Fraser-Nash is moving its way up through the pack and trying to catch the Type 37 Bugatti driven by Bob Siffert. It's Siffert and Siebert running 1 and 2. But here comes Peter Giddings in that Talbot Lago Grand Prix car, 47 vintage. But look at the battle between the Bugatti and the Fraser-Nash as they are nose to tail coming down off the hill. Giddings in the Talbot Lago closing on them. Pretty soon you're going to have a 3-car battle for the lead. Classic battle. As the old cars, the driver sat upright. You can see them at work. Here goes the Fraser-Nash on the inside, trying to make it on the inside, but can't do it and has to fall back. And now the Bugatti loops it down in turn 9. The Fraser-Nash gets by, and Giddings gets by in the Talbot. But now it's Siebert in the lead, and there comes the power of that Talbot Grand Prix car as he just out-accelerates the Fraser-Nash on him to start and finish straightaway. In the meantime, Bob Siefert in that Bugatti has got it pointed in the right direction, and he's going to rejoin the chase. He looks like his tailpipe has come adrift, however. Further on back in the back, you've got a battle between a couple of those Mercedes that we talked about earlier. Cars number 75 and 90, Keith Coulter and Bob Sutherland. One, the big monster SSK, the other, an old Targa Florio car.
Well back in the field were 2 Ford-based American race cars, a 1914 Model T Speedster and a Ford Ray Joe Special. For the truly knowledgeable, these were among the most important race cars on the track. They were the forebears of the racers that ran in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and evolved into the powerful stock cars of today's superspeedways that can be traced to these almost humorous, spindly-legged racers. But today, a 1947 Talbot Lago, winner of the 1949 French Grand Prix, and the number 91 1935 Fraser-Nash Special would be the most formidable contenders in the race.
Exhaust pipe has come adrift, and that car is worth probably in excess of $200,000, and he is not babying it one bit as he tries to work his way back up to the lead. But it is Giddings in the Talbot Lago, and then John Siebert in that Fraser Nash running first and second. As they continue to run all the way around the course in that order, the Fraser Nash cannot catch the Talbot, but the Talbot cannot seem to pull away at the same time. It looks like Mr. Siebert is going to pit in that Bugatti. He had his hand up in the air as he came down to start finish straight away that time. It's surprised to see that Fraser Nash keep up with the Talbot as well as it does, but it doesn't have the normal Meadows engine that was in that car in 35. It was pulled out and replaced with an AC 6-cylinder. That's why that car has the power it does and is able to harass Giddings in that lead Talbot. But the Talbot Lago, a classic car, a 1947 Grand Prix car, raced by French champion Louis Chiron in the French Grand Prix in 1949. He won the 1952 and 53 Australian Grand Prix in that car as well. Coming down into turn 9 for the final time, Peter Giddings in that beautiful Talbot Lago takes the checkered flag for the win. Car number 91 takes the checker for second.
It is not often you can restage history. Ferrari, Maserati, Jaguar, and Mercedes were the great racing names of the 50s at the Tourist Trophy in Ireland, at Le Mans in France, and at the Targa Florio and the Mille Miglia in Italy. The magnificent SLR ran against Jaguar, for example, in only 2 of these events, and only raced 6 times during its undefeated career. Yet here, for a few laps, the organizers of this new sport of old car racing bring together the 4 great mates. These moments, these brilliant revivals of sporting history, are what have brought vintage car racing to its new worldwide popularity. If the tens of thousands of fans who came to Monterey can say nothing else, they will be able to tell their children they saw the giants of post-war racing together for the first time in 23 years. Who knows when they will be on the track together again.
55. Phil Hill out in front at the moment in the factory 300 SLR. Right behind him in a D-Jag, Simon Phillips, who is a leading English vintage racer. And coming up behind him is a Ferrari driven by Bill Zeri, a 121 LM. All cars 1955, all outstanding racing cars in their day. But Phil Hill is in the lead now in that Mercedes 300 SLR, being really hotly pursued now by Simon Phillips. Phillips really putting the pressure on Hill as they come on down through turn 9. The Ferrari still running in 3rd spot, and the Maserati in 4th. And now Phillips makes a move on the outside of Phil Hill just as they cross under the starter's bridge and starts to accelerate away. Phillips in that D-Jag, which is not owned by him, but is owned by a gentleman back east in the United States. The car is stored here, but Phillips was brought over just to drive the car for this event. Hill now drops back into 2nd, and as he tries to make a move on the inside as they go up into 4, up the hill, but no, can't do it there as Phillips moves back over on him and shuts the door. As they come on now up into the top of the hill, they should be starting down into turns 7 and 8, and Phil Hill will try and make a move on Phillips again because he wants that lead back. Phillips still the leader in the D-Jag. As they go through turn 7 now, Hill tries to get inside of Phillips on that short straight between turns 7 and 8. He manages to keep that inside line and goes by Phillips, sees that he's had it, tucks back in behind Hill. Hill out in front now with about 3 car lengths as they go through turning down into turn 9. That beautiful 300 SLR right out of the factory museum. Probably the first time that this car has turned a wheel on a race course since its retirement almost 25 years ago. Phillips in that Jaguar running in 2nd, and the Maserati 300S driven by Ralph Koke is in 3rd spot. And here comes a Ferrari now running up to the 4th spot. Bill Zeri in that 121 LM.
First of all, I want to thank everybody involved in helping us make this obviously the biggest and best Monterey we've ever had. Since we've been here all day, for 2 days really, we don't want to belabor the whole situation. We'll have a few words a little bit later, but I'd really like to get to the dubious awards part.
Phil Hill remembers these moments. They were sweet then, they are sweet now. The grins this year have been no wider for our new world champion, Mario Andretti. If there is a difference, it is that in every other form of auto racing, there is only one goal: winning. To lose is to suffer at least disappointment. But here at Laguna Seca on this summer Saturday, there are no losers. Racers have spent the day completely absorbed in the magic of their cars, and they've given the spectators a glimpse of their own history. So both linger. Such moments don't come often. You hold them as long as you can. As for that marvel of a car that Hill drove today, Mercedes 300 SLR, it has had one more afternoon in the world it was designed to dominate. No one will leave this track untouched by the sight of a world champion driving a world championship car. We'll go home to wait, perhaps to race again.